Well, the verse we're looking at tells a story. It's about a grammarian. Think super smart, total language whiz, the kind of guy who dedicated his whole life to intellectual pursuits. Like, he was successful, sure, but Shankaracharya uses this character to represent anyone, really, anyone who might be obsessed with worldly knowledge and achievements, while kind of, missing the bigger picture of life. It's like they're caught in a trap.
Okay, wait, so are we saying that being smart is a bad thing now? Because I gotta be honest, that's not a concept I'm super familiar with.
Oh, no, it's not about intelligence being bad, inherently bad. It's Shankaracharya's critique is a little more nuanced than that. He's saying that knowledge and intellect are amazing tools, but they can actually feed our ego and distract us from true self-realization. Imagine you're on a road trip, right? Knowledge is like having the super detailed map. But if you spend the entire trip just obsessing over the map, you're missing the actual journey, the experience.
Yeah, mistaking the map for the journey. I get that.
Yeah.
So in this story, how does the grammarian finally get undeceived? Like, who snaps him out of it?
That's where the disciples of Adi Shankaracharya come in. They're like spiritual guides, mentors, Think of them like the people in our lives who really challenge our assumptions and help us to see past our own blind spots. In the verse, it seems like they probably used carefully crafted questions, to make the grammarian really question his priorities and ultimately lead him towards an aha moment.
Oh, I think we can all relate to that feeling. Being stuck in a rut, chasing goals that maybe don't truly fulfill us, and then something happens that totally shakes things up. Maybe this grammarian is a lot more relatable than we think.
Absolutely. And the reason this text is called the hammer of delusion is that just like a hammer breaks things down, these verses are meant to shatter our misconceptions about what truly matters in life.
So not just for like religious folks, but like a universal message.
Exactly. Bhaja Govindam is saying that real fulfillment doesn't come from external achievements or possessions, but from understanding ourselves and our place in the world.
So if you had to boil down the key takeaways from this text, like what would you say Shankaracharya was really trying to tell us?
Well, if we look at Bhaja Govindam as a whole, it really emphasizes a few key things. Firstly, simple living is better than chasing complexity. It also emphasizes the importance of not getting so caught up in material things that we forget about what's truly important. And then there's the idea of devotion and detachment, which is essentially learning to let go of material desires. Ultimately, Bhaja Govindam is telling us that real wisdom is knowing yourself, knowing your true self beyond all the superficial stuff.
And you're saying all of that is reflected in this story of the deluded grammarian.
Exactly. He thought he had it all figured out, but he was missing the bigger picture, And that's what makes this verse such a powerful way to end Bhaja Govindam. It reminds us that even the most intellectual people can get caught in delusion, but there's also this hopeful message there. It shows that there's always the possibility for change, for awakening, if we're willing to question our assumptions and look inward.
Okay, I'm already starting to think about what delusions might be holding me back. What about you? Have you ever felt like you were chasing the wrong things or mistaking the map for the journey?
Definitely. I think everyone experiences moments like that. It's part of being human, isn't it? The key is recognizing those moments and figuring out what we can do to break free.
That's such a great point, and I bet our listeners are thinking the same thing right now. So let's shift gears a bit and talk about how this ancient story might play out in our modern lives. Who is the grammarian today? And what are the modern-day hammers that can shake us out of those ruts?
It's fascinating to think about, how this ancient story could be playing out in our modern lives if we try to connect it to the bigger picture. I think the grammarian could be anyone who's just hyper-focused on achievement, especially external validation. It could be the entrepreneur who's obsessed with building the next billion-dollar company, or the influencer chasing likes and followers.
Or even someone like me, always trying to get more downloads for this podcast. I feel seen.
Yeah.
But seriously, though, I get what you're saying. It's not that those pursuits are wrong in themselves, but maybe it's about recognizing when they become a source of that, delusion we were talking about.
Yeah.
When we start believing that our self-worth is tied to those external markers of success.
Exactly. And I think the modern day hammers are anything that helps us to see beyond those illusions, those moments of clarity, however they come, that force us to question what truly matters.
Yeah, like sometimes it takes hitting rock bottom to make us reevaluate, right?
Yeah.
That saying, you don't know what you've got till it's gone, comes to mind. I'm thinking about like those big life events, setbacks, losses. They can be brutal, but maybe they're also really powerful hammers in a way.
They absolutely can be, because they often force us to reevaluate our priorities. Like, what are we really living for? Sometimes those hammers come in the form of, unexpected encounters too, or new perspectives. Think about a conversation with a mentor that totally shifts your thinking, or a book that, like, challenges your entire worldview. Even just, traveling and experiencing different cultures can have that effect.
Oh, totally. I remember this one time I was backpacking through Southeast Asia, and I met all these people who were living such incredibly simple lives. Very few possessions, but so much joy and contentment. It really made me question, my own values and what I was striving for back home.
That's a perfect example of a hammer experience. It's encountering something that disrupts our usual way of thinking and forces us to see the world and ourselves, from a new angle.
So it's not always those big, dramatic life events. It can be those smaller moments of insight, too, that gradually chip away at those misconceptions we hold. Kind of like how water can erode rock over time, even though each drop seems insignificant.
That's a great analogy. And I think it's important to remember that this process of breaking free from those like limiting beliefs, it's ongoing. We can slip back into old patterns pretty easily. That's why it's so important to cultivate practices and relationships that help us stay grounded and connected to our true selves, whatever that means for each of us.
It makes me think about things like mindfulness practices, or even just surrounding ourselves with people who support our growth and challenge us to think differently.
Exactly. Those can be really powerful tools for staying awake and aware. In a world that's constantly trying to distract us, it's about checking in with ourselves regularly, asking those tough questions, and being open to the lessons that life throws our way.
This whole conversation is making me think about the role of discomfort in all of this. It seems like those hammer experiences are often pretty uncomfortable, even painful sometimes. But maybe that discomfort is actually an important part of the process.
That's a great point. Discomfort can be a huge catalyst for growth. Think about it like exercise. You have to push yourself beyond your comfort zone to build strength, right? Same thing applies to our mental and emotional well-being. Those challenging experiences can help us develop resilience, wisdom, all those things we're aiming for.
So we shouldn't necessarily shy away from discomfort. We should try to embrace it, knowing that it's often an opportunity for learning and transformation.
Exactly, and approaching those challenges with curiosity and compassion, rather than judgment or resistance, can make a huge difference.
Kind of like flipping the script on that, saying, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger?
Yeah.
Maybe it's more like, what challenges you helps you grow.
Love that. It's about seeing those difficult moments as opportunities to learn and evolve, rather than just, things to be feared or avoided. So we've talked about the modern day grammarians and the hammers, but what about those disciples? Who are the people in our lives who can help us see past our own blind spots? Who are our guides on this journey of self-discovery?
Yeah, that's a great question, because they play such a crucial role in the story, right? They're the ones who help the grammarian break free. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, in the story, they represent those individuals who offer guidance and support on our journey of self-discovery. It could be a therapist, a spiritual teacher, a mentor, even a trusted friend, someone who can hold up a mirror to us, help us see ourselves more clearly.
And just like in the story, they don't necessarily give us all the answers, right? They're more like guides, helping us ask the right questions.
Yeah.
And discover our own truths. I like that approach. Not just telling someone what to think, but helping them find their own way.
Right. It's about empowering the individual to do their own inner work. And it's important to remember that these relationships can be reciprocal. We can be disciples for others too, offering support and sharing our own perspectives.
So it's all about community, supporting each other's growth. We learn and evolve together. It's amazing how much this ancient text has to say about the way we live today, even down to the importance of human connection.
I agree. And speaking of connection, there's another layer to this whole idea of delusion that we haven't touched on yet, the societal level. What's really been striking me is how we can see this concept playing out on a much larger scale.
Oh, wow. I see where you're going with this. Are you talking about how we can get caught up in collective delusions, like societal trends or belief systems?
Exactly. If we look at, the state of the world today, there's a lot of evidence of collective delusion. We see it in the polarization of politics, the spread of misinformation, even the unsustainable ways we're treating the planet. It's like we're all caught up in these systems and structures that perpetuate a distorted view of reality, keeping us from seeing the bigger picture.
That's a heavy thought. But I have to admit, it resonates. It makes me wonder, What are the hammers that can break those collective delusions? What are the forces that can shift those societal paradigms and help us create a more just and sustainable world?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? I don't think there are any easy answers, but I do think it starts with individual awareness. Each of us has a responsibility to question the systems and structures that we're a part of and to find ways to disrupt them. It starts with recognizing our own complicity and then taking action to create positive change.
So it's not enough to just work on our own individual delusions. We have to address those collective ones too, the ones that are shaping our world and impacting everyone.
Absolutely. And that requires, open, honest dialogue where we're willing to challenge our own assumptions and listen to different perspectives. It's about recognizing that we're all interconnected and that our actions have consequences, not just for ourselves, but for each other and the planet as a whole.
Wow, this conversation is getting deep. We're talking about a complete paradigm shift.
And I think that's ultimately what Bhaja Govindam is calling for. It's a call to wake up, to see the world and ourselves as we truly are, and to live in alignment with our highest values.
We've covered so much ground today. This ancient text has sparked some really thought-provoking conversations, and I'm sure our listeners have a lot to reflect on.
It's been a fascinating deep dive into the teachings of Bhaja Govindam, that's for sure. And we're not done yet.
Right. We're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, I want to hear from you, listeners. What are your thoughts on this idea of collective delusion? What are some of those hammers that you see at work in the world today? Those forces pushing for positive change? We'll be right back. Welcome back to The Deep Dive. We've been having a truly fascinating conversation today, all about the Bhaja Govindam and this whole idea of delusion, not just on a personal level, but how it plays out in society too.
It's been incredible to see how these ancient teachings are still so relevant. They offer such a fresh perspective on the challenges we're facing in the modern world.
What's really stuck with me is that image of the hammer of delusion. It's such a powerful metaphor for breaking free from those limiting beliefs and patterns that can hold us back.
What's interesting to me is that a hammer itself isn't inherently good or bad. It's a tool, right? It can be used in so many ways, just like knowledge, intellect, even success. They can be used to build ourselves up or to feed our egos and create separation.
It's all about intention and awareness then.
Yeah.
Are we using these tools consciously? Or are we letting them use us?
Exactly. And the Bhaja Govindam reminds us that true wisdom lies in discerning the difference. It's about cultivating that inner awareness that allows us to see beyond the surface and connect with our true selves.
And that's where those disciples or mentors come in. The people who can help us reflect and see things from a new perspective.
Absolutely. We all have blind spots, right? And having those trusted guides can be so valuable. They help us see what we might be missing.
This whole conversation's made me realize that delusion isn't always this big dramatic thing. Sometimes it's those subtle everyday habits or thoughts that can keep us stuck.
That's a really insightful observation. It's those, unconscious patterns that we often don't even realize are influencing our choices.
Like for me, maybe my delusion is thinking I need to be constantly busy to feel worthy. Or maybe it's comparing myself to others and feeling inadequate. It's those little things that can really add up.
And that's why self-reflection is so crucial. It's about taking the time to examine those thoughts and beliefs and asking ourselves, are these really serving me? Are they aligned with my values and aspirations?
I think that's a great question for our listeners to consider too. What are some of those subtle delusions that might be operating in your life? And what are the tools or practices that can help you become more aware and break free from them?
Maybe it's journaling, meditation, or spending time in nature. It could be having honest conversations with trusted friends or seeking guidance from a therapist or a mentor. There are so many different hammers out there. It's about finding what works for you.
And being patient with ourselves.
Yeah.
It's not about reaching some perfect state of enlightenment overnight. It's an ongoing journey.
Absolutely. And as we continue on this journey, it's important to remember that we're not alone. We're all in this together, navigating the complexities of life.
What a beautiful way to wrap up this deep dive. It's been an honor to explore these teachings with you and our listeners.
The pleasure has been all mine, and I encourage everyone to keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep seeking those hammers that can help you break free from delusion and live a more fulfilling life.
Thank you for joining us on the deep dive. Until next time, keep diving deeper and keep those sources coming.